The day I graduated high school was supposed to be the day everything finally felt worth it. Every late-night study session, every weekend spent working instead of hanging out, every sacrifice no one saw but everyone would eventually benefit from. But that afternoon, standing outside the school gym in my cap and gown, staring at my family scattered in uncomfortable silence across the parking lot, I realized something brutal and unshakable. The people who were supposed to root for me were secretly betting on my fall. It had always been that way with my father's side of the family. They were the type who smiled with their teeth but never with their eyes, the type who clapped for you just loud enough for the neighbors to hear but quiet enough so you never forgot they wished it wasn't you on the stage. For years, they treated me like the spare, the backup plan, the kid who existed in the shadow of their golden child, my cousin Mason. Mason was everything they loved, loud, athletic, charming in a practiced, TV-ready kind of way. He had the easy confidence of someone who had never been told no, never been questioned, never been held accountable long enough to learn the word humility. And they worshipped him. Family cookouts, holidays, reunions, it was always Mason's parade, and we were expected to clap from the sidewalk. But graduation was supposed to be mine. I had earned it, top of my class, full scholarship, honors cord that felt heavier than gold around my shoulders. Teachers hugged me, students congratulated me, strangers complimented my speech. For once, the spotlight wasn't on Mason, and I felt the tension building in my family like a storm pressing against the windows. After the ceremony, my mom hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. She whispered, "You did it," in that cracked, trembling voice that belonged to someone who had fought every battle with me and for me. She was my rock, my anchor, the only reason I hadn't drowned in the weight of other people's doubt. But she was also the reason the rest of the family hated seeing me succeed. Mom was the outsider, the one my father's family never approved of, too soft-spoken, too kind, too unwilling to play the power games the rest of them thrived on. When my dad left, his family made it clear I was welcome only as long as I stayed in the box they had built for me, small, quiet, grateful, a kid who didn't outshine their favorite son. And today I had broken every rule they set. I noticed the shift the moment Mason walked toward me after the ceremony, his smile stretched tight like badly applied tape. He clapped slowly, loudly, obnoxiously. "Well, well," he said, circling me as if examining a suspicious artifact. "Look who finally had their big moment." I ignored the bitterness in his tone. "Thanks, man." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Don't get used to it." The words were venomous and soft, meant for me alone. Before I could respond, his mother, my Aunt Laura, wrapped her arm around him and looked at me with a cool, polished smile. "We're all very proud," she said, though the corners of her mouth twitched with irritation. "But college is a different world, sweetheart. Some people peak in high school." Mom stepped beside me instantly, her presence like a shield. "My child's just getting started." Aunt Laura's eyes narrowed, not at me, at my mom. Something old and sour passed between them, something that had simmered for years. I'd never fully understood it, but I knew it was rooted in the fact that my mom succeeded without ever stepping on others, while they believed success only meant something if someone else lost. The rest of the afternoon was a blur of fake compliments, loaded comments, and thinly veiled envy. And then came the moment that changed everything, when Mason, accidentally, knocked over the table holding my scholarship award and shattered the plaque into pieces before announcing to everyone watching that I should learn to be more careful with things. People laughed, my family laughed. Even my father, who had shown up late and stood quietly in the back like he was afraid my success might be contagious, shook his head like I had done something wrong. Mom bent down and helped me gather the broken pieces, whispering, "Don't let them see you break." But I already felt something cracking inside me, something small at first, then deepening like a fracture that slowly expands into a canyon. That night, after the guests had left and the house fell silent, I lay in my room staring at the ceiling, replaying every sneer, every insult disguised as advice, every time they made me feel like I didn't belong. I had spent years trying to earn their approval, trying to make them proud, trying to prove that I was worth something. But that day showed me the truth. They didn't want me to fail because they believed I couldn't succeed. They wanted me to fail because my success exposed everything they were not. And for the first time in my life, I didn't cry about it. I got angry. Because I finally understood that some betrayals don't cut you, they sharpen you. Some pain doesn't break you, it builds you. And some families aren't made of blood, they're made of choices. And I was finally ready to choose differently. What I didn't know then was that the storm I felt brewing inside me wasn't the end, it was the beginning. Because the universe has a way of giving you exactly what you need when you're finally ready to stop asking for permission and start taking what you've earned. My revenge wouldn't come with harsh words or petty games. It wouldn't come with violence or dramatic confrontations. No. My revenge would be quiet, patient, strategic. The kind that grows roots and takes its time. The kind that makes people realize too late that the person they underestimated became the one person they should have never crossed. The kind that begins with silence and ends with everyone hearing your name echo through the places they swore you'd never reach. And mine was just beginning. College cracked my world open in ways I never expected. For the first time, I wasn't surrounded by people who saw me as second place. I was around people who valued effort, ambition, intelligence, creativity, the very things my father's family treated like threats. I felt free. For the first time in my life, I allowed myself to believe I was capable of something bigger than survival. But freedom also came with memory, and memory came with anger. Every time I aced an exam, I remembered Mason's smirk. Every time a professor complimented me, I remembered Aunt Laura's warning. Every time I pushed myself harder, I remembered the laughter in that parking lot as my scholarship plaque shattered into pieces. I didn't want revenge at first, I wanted peace, but peace doesn't come easy when the people who hurt you still think they won. 3 years into college, everything changed when Mom called me one evening. Her voice was soft. Tired, the way it got when she didn't want me to worry but couldn't hide it from me. "They're in trouble," she said. I didn't have to ask who. My father's family had made a bad investment, a very bad one that drained their savings, their businesses, their reputation. My father had already filed for bankruptcy. Aunt Laura's company was collapsing. Mason's scholarship had been revoked after he flunked too many classes and got caught up in a scandal that was only half his fault and fully his character. Mom paused before asking, "What are you thinking?" I didn't answer at first. Because for years I fantasized about this moment, the moment life finally handed them the consequences they deserved. And yet now that it was here, I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel justice. I felt clarity. This wasn't about watching them fall. This was about rising so high that they had no choice but to look up. And then life presented me with something else, something that felt so much like fate that it was almost poetic. A startup competition in my university's business incubator, a $200,000 grant, resources, mentors, investors, a chance to build something of my own. I entered, I worked day and night. I poured every memory, every slight, every cold stare, every lonely holiday, every quiet tear into my project. My determination was no longer fueled by wanting to prove them wrong, but wanting to prove myself right. When I won the competition, the applause felt like thunder in my chest, but not because of the victory. It was because I finally understood I didn't need anyone to choose me. I could choose myself. The startup grew faster than anyone expected. Within a year, we secured investments, hired staff, expanded offices, built national partnerships. I became the kind of person my father's family said I would never become. And that's when they came back. It started subtly. A friend request from my father, a "proud of you" comment from Aunt Laura on a public post, a long message from Mason pretending nothing ever happened, asking if I had any job openings. They reached out not because they cared, but because they needed. And this was the moment my revenge truly began. Because revenge is not always fire. Sometimes it is ice. Cold, controlled, precise. I responded kindly but kept distance. I replied to messages with professionalism, not warmth. I offered advice but no favors. I listened but never volunteered help. I let them think they still had access to me, even as I slowly walked farther away. The true shift happened one rainy afternoon when my father asked to meet me. He showed up looking older than I remembered, wearing a suit that didn't fit the body he had grown into, one weighed down by stress and regret. He sat across from me, hands trembling slightly as he spoke. "I need help," he admitted. "Your family needs help." For a brief moment, the child in me, the one who had wanted his approval, stirred. But then I remembered Mom picking up broken pieces of my award while my family laughed. I leaned back in my chair and said gently, "I can't fix what broke us." His face crumbled, and for a second I almost felt sorry for him, almost. But revenge is not cruelty, revenge is clarity, and my clarity was simple: I owed them nothing. Weeks later, my company received an offer to buy one of Aunt Laura's failing divisions. The irony was suffocating. Years ago, she warned me that some people peak in high school. Now she was emailing me to schedule a meeting. I bought the division, not out of spite, but because it made business sense. But when the contract was signed and she realized she now worked under the shadow of the child she spent years dismissing, she couldn't look me in the eyes. That was the moment I felt it, the true weight of my revenge. It didn't come from winning. It came from them realizing I had already moved on. The final blow, though, came from Mason. He showed up at my office one morning, desperate, exhausted, humbled in a way I never thought possible. He asked, for real this time, if I could hire him, not because he wanted to use me, but because he had nowhere else to go. I studied him for a long moment, wondering if this was what victory felt like, but it wasn't victory, it was perspective. I told him softly, "I don't hold grudges, but I don't repeat history either." He nodded, eyes shining with the shame of someone who finally understood the cost of arrogance. We parted peacefully. No anger, no yelling, just the quiet truth settling between us like dust finally choosing where to land. Years passed. Mom lived comfortably, happily, surrounded by pride instead of hostility. I kept building, kept climbing, kept choosing peace over pettiness. And in time, the family that once tried to shrink me became nothing more than a lesson, a necessary one. And my revenge. It wasn't about destroying them. It was about becoming someone they couldn't destroy. Because sometimes the loudest revenge is living a life they never believed you were capable of. And mine echoed farther than their doubt ever reached.